right, I need everybody to bear with me for a moment. If you could indulge me so that I can acclimate and get comfortable, just play along if you feel led to. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. So I had to think about that. As I was introduced, I was thinking a little bit more about how we were going to go about this. And I feel like when I was where you were, there were only three things I cared about: who the speaker was, where they were from, and what the speaker had. So as was said, my name is Jay Atlas. I am from 1.5 miles from here on Moore Street, 300 blocks. Shout out Norristown. Sorry, it's a global platform for local people. I got to give us just a moment. But that being said, what I have is persistent depressive disorder. And what that is a sustained period of time, about 2 years of observations of a low, dark, or sad mood, fatigue, poor appetite. As you can tell, I was on the eating more side of things. There's a host of other symptoms as well. But that being said, I decided that I was going to take a look at my life in a different way. And there were times that I wasn't at my best, times that I wasn't happy. And there are still times today, to this day, where I have to consider whether or not I want to clap at the end of the song. But as it was said, I had to go 13,924 miles to be here today, right? 1.5 miles from this very building, had to go 13,924 miles to be here. So what that included was walking and cycling across the country to speak out against human trafficking. And the way I got involved was in 2013, I was invited down to the Passion Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, midweek in this conference, they stop everything and they introduce us to what human trafficking and modern day slavery is. Human trafficking is the forced transportation, illegal transportation of an individual for the purposes of sexual exploitation or forced labor. With that, modern day slavery is sort of an umbrella term. It covers serfdom, debt bondage, forced delivery of a child, et cetera, et cetera. But I really want to focus on not only the definition of those words, but the part of speech that is. And those are both nouns. Nouns as in people, places, and things. Right? People as in 30+ million around the world who are in some form of bondage today. Places as in 160+ countries who have either been identified or recognized slavery within their borders. And things as in the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the houses we live in, the roads that we drive down, all manufactured by these people who are otherwise unnamed. And it's difficult to express what human trafficking is without a name. So when I came out here, Head Akbar had introduced me and I said, my name is Jay Atlas. You'd be no closer to knowing me than if I just stood here and waved in front of you. Or you're no closer to knowing victims of human trafficking without, I guess, a name and the story behind it. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional already. I think I got this one. If I cry, I want you guys to know I have allergies, and that's what it is. It's not actual tears, it's the allergies. So that being said, I was at this conference. They stop us, they tell us what human trafficking is, modern day slavery, and a young lady spoke, and she shared her story of being trafficked. And I didn't really know how to process that. See, for me, I was used to sort of forcing myself to get out there to get some sort of achievement. Neil Brennan is a comedian and one of the co-writers from The Chappelle Show. And what he said was that the only two things that he could feel other than depression, he's clinically depressed for context, other than his depression were ego and adrenaline. And I can relate to that in that I always had to achieve something. Now, I've been in the newspaper a bunch for sports. I won a dodgeball tournament. I got the last out, a couple catches. I had a fracture in my shoulder. Not to brag, pretty good at dodgeball. I was okay at football. I was a defensive player of the week for Suburban One Sports. I was in the theater programs, like 7 or 8 theatrical productions. I also wrote for our school paper, and I had a picture published in our local paper here. But those were unsustainable. There's 365 papers, 365 days, and at the time I didn't have the integrity or the ethic to really just get that kind of work done. But again, this conference. So in the conference, they introduced us to human trafficking, and I come home with this appropriately named passion, and I pour into my brother, and I'm like, Shannon, there's these people out there being trafficked. What do we do, man? And he just, so you can understand my brother, Shannon. I'm large, I'm bald, he is small, and has long hair. We're very different. I am very dry. He is very artistic. So one of the things is I'm pouring into him, he just goes, so now what? And for the first time I had to think, what does that mean, right? Calls for justice are just sound unless you act on it. So as we're sitting there kind of tongue-in-cheek, we kind of made a joke about, we could totally walk across the country. I was about to turn the ripe old age of 23, so it was time for me to settle down, have a kid, have the picket fence in the garage, and all those wonderful things that you should have by the time you're 23, or at least that you plan. And it didn't happen. And so a couple months passed by, and the joke catches on, and everybody sort of expected us to do this. So with $21 to our name after all of our supplies were picked up, I asked my lovely mother if she could drive us to the shore, which tearfully she obliged to, and we just started walking. And we went from being, directionless, purposeless, to sort of challenged and inspired. And to say we didn't have any direction, or to say that we had direction, I guess would be false. We were heading west, but somehow west from Atlantic City was Chicago, it was Kansas City, it was St. Louis, it was Phoenix before we finally landed in Los Angeles. Now, I didn't know what it was supposed to be. We are remarkably average people. And in our average circumstances, we found opportunities that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So in that, we're going day by day, one foot in front of the other, for 10 hours, roughly 30 miles. Our longest day was 57 days. So about 6 weeks into this, we're starting to really, really go at it. Now, we've had a couple arguments before. We went 11 days without showering, and I don't know how long you've gone without showers, intentionally or otherwise, but 11 days in the summertime carrying 60 plus pounds and sleeping outside means you're pretty gross. So we are at our best, about 4 days without showering, walking in to Topeka, Kansas. Now, Shannon, again, is very artistic. He's one of the most artistically determined people I've ever met, and it's a joy to watch him turn ideas into stories and stories into art and film. But on the 23rd of September in 2013 in Topeka, Kansas, this was not one of those days. Now, Shannon and I are sitting in a Pizza Hut, and the Pizza Hut resides in the corner of 10th Avenue and Topeka Boulevard in the downtown area. As we're seated there, he proceeds to tell me a story that he's working on that I had already intentionally ignored. Now, as you can tell, I'm a fun guy. I'm a happy guy. I just looked at him, and that was it. I was at my limit. We started arguing. You're stupid. You're a jerk. You're wasting money. And I said the most hurtful thing I could have possibly said to him. Your story is stupid. Mermaids would never come to Philadelphia. He was devastated. So 4 hours longer, we sit there, and every grievance that we had with each other is just pouring out. And it's just overflowing as we kind of quietly yell at each other in this Pizza Hut. Mind you, we're munching on Pizza Hut pizza, so we already look ridiculous because the slices are a little bit smaller than my hand, and trying to argue about mermaids coming to Philadelphia. But in that time, whether you believe in fate or destiny or purpose, in that time, 3 young ladies walk in with a gentleman who we find out is, there's an 18-year-old named, we're going to cover their names for their sake, and if they ever choose to share their story in the future, I'd love for them to have, all rights to it. So we'll say Angie is the 18-year-old, we'll go with Joy for a 4-year-old, and let's say Dawn for the 21-year-old. The gentleman's name we never learn, and quite frankly, if I never see him again, I'd be just okay with that. So Dawn, Joy, and Angie walk into the Pizza Hut with this gentleman, and they sit just adjacent to us. Now, we've calmed down at this point, and we have our map folded out on the table, and we're just trying to figure out where to go. Now, west is an easy direction, but we at least had to make it look like we put effort into it. So as we finally settle on our route out, one of the young ladies comes over and she says, "Hey, what are you guys up to?" Now I'm thinking that she's intrigued by our bags. We had these massive backpacks with signs on them that said "End Human Trafficking, Walking Across America to End Human Trafficking." But it turns out she just thought Shannon was cute. I told you we're very different. So as we begin to tell her our story, we go through our usual shtick, and it was sort of like our automated response. It was, we are walking across the country to raise awareness of and against human trafficking and modern-day slavery. And before she could hit us with her follow-up question, because again, 6 weeks we're experts at this point, we just responded, it's organ harvesting, forced labor, and forced prostitution. And then the 21-year-old, Dawn, cues in and she says, "Oh, I know about the life." Now, up until this point, we hadn't really acknowledged her because she wasn't a part of our group. When we heard that she knew about the life, we knew that as a key phrase in prostitution. So immediately we picked up on it, and when they offered us a chance to shower later, now again, 11 days without showering, that is a suffrage I don't wish on my worst enemy. But at 4 days, we were still at our limit. We knew we had to take that opportunity to shower. So we agree, exchange phone numbers, and we go about our way until later that evening. Now we're sitting around, and Shannon and I are debating for hours in the meantime. Do you think they're being exploited? Do you think they're okay? How do we go about this? Hey man, mermaids might be able to come to Philly. It's not gonna happen. So we finally get the call, it's time to go over. Now when we show up, we're skeptical because we're supposed to have these clean images despite being, again, remarkably average people. We wanted to be as blameless as possible on camera. And our first thought was, if we get caught with people who we believe to be involved in prostitution, the exploitation, we're going to damage all the work that we've done thus far. But we knew we had to go just to find out what was happening. So we finally come inside, and we realize only Angie is in the house. So immediately we're like, "Hey, what's going on? We thought all three of you would be here. We just want to talk to you guys. We're not really sure what's happening. Is that shower still available? I would like a shower if that's still available." Time passes, and she finally says, "Dawn is an escort on Backpage.com." And for anyone who knows Backpage.com, it is a trafficking site, essentially. They're going through the legal battles now to confirm their involvement. But we said, "Okay, we know how to get you help. We know a way out of here. All we need is for you just to say yes." So with a little gentle prodding, eventually they say, "All right, we're going to go." For the sake of Dawn's daughter, the 4-year-old, she said yes. Now at this point, we're still kind of making it up as we go along. So we're like, "All right, what do we have in our pockets?" And we pull out some change and a couple single-digit bills. And we're like, "All right, we have enough to get over there." We take a 4-mile cab ride to the apartment complex where she was staying. So all we knew was that she was in the 3rd floor, and we had to lock the door before she left. So we get to the building. I see the room. She tells me 3rd floor, down the hallway, on the right, 1st door. So I'm looking for a door that in my mind says, "Hurry up before he gets back." And as I get to the door, I reassure her, "Hey, I'm going to lock the door. Make sure you get down the hallway. We're going to figure it out from there." So she's running down the hallway. I knew that I could lock the door, but I was aware that she thought that I had some sort of magic powers to just turn the key from the outside and get down the steps behind her. That wasn't an option, so the door had to be locked. I go inside, lock the door, and the only way out is over the balcony. Now, I don't know if you know this, but most balconies are not on the bottom floor. Like, there's no grass outside that balcony. So I go outside, grab onto the railing, and extend my body. Now, again, Shannon is very artistic. If I was thinking like him, I would have felt like a movie star. I'd be like, "Okay, cool. I can drop down, grab the lamppost, swing down to the 2nd floor, and just barrel roll from the 2nd floor. Bada boom, we got this." I am not built to dangle for too long. I stretched out, and I'm looking, and I'm thinking to myself is, okay, all right, got about 10 seconds left. And between the resignation between I'm going to fall 2.5 stories and, hey, is there anyone who can help me? A moment of clarity hits. I'd find a piece, and I trust the fall. And I let go. I fall down one floor with just enough room to get my toes on that second level balcony railing, and I could only fall the last 2 floors, which was my plan initially. I landed, the cab driver was like, "What the hell was that? Get in, let's go." So he takes us back to the place. We reassure them that everything's gonna be okay, sort of move us along. We get a rattling, and it's this rusty orange truck, and it's her pimp, her trafficker, her exploiter, circling the block. He was aware that we were with them earlier, and it was said that we were seen with them since. So he sat on guard duty for the rest of the night, made sure that they were able to get picked up in the morning, and the 3 are living comfortably now. And it's probably the greatest moment of my life. Now, in terms of achievements, adrenaline high, but this is the first time that an act of service didn't satiate my own ego. There was no fanfare, no newspaper write-ups, there was nothing on the news, and yet I couldn't help but to feel better. And that's when I realized that there was a study done by the American Changing Life Study that took place over 20 years, where they observed 3,600 people, half who did charity work or did volunteer work, and half who did not. What they found was that the half that did had a better mental health and a better physical health. So what you have is a release in the mesolimbic pathways in the brain. Now, I'm sorry, y'all, I am not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist. If you want to correct me later, I would love to learn something. That's why we're all here. But the release in your brain, dopamine gets released, and it creates that good feeling. So what you have is acts of service that actually correlate to you feeling better, to you being better. I've had the joy and the honor of participating in over a dozen rescues across the country in years since, either coordinating them or having to run into people who needed to be transitioned out. And I don't know. I can't believe that it really works. Now, it's not a cure for everyone, right? There are lessons that you can take. You can go sit with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. As Neil Brennan once again said, if you don't know the difference, congratulations, you're having a great life. But one of the big things I think that we should all look forward to is the opportunity to serve. If I'm not mistaken, it was Albert Schweitzer who said, only those among you who have really served. Let's check that one more time. Oh, I'm sorry, here we go. I got the right quote now. We're going to switch it up. Only those among you who is really happy has sought and found a way to serve. And I think that as we go forward, in order to look after yourself and look after each other, maybe everybody take 2 hours this week and go serve your community. If I can challenge you, maybe you'll be happy too.